Hello and welcome to the Trent Advantage webinar series. My name is Jason Picard. Tonight's topic is OSAP and financial aid. And joining me this evening is Lisa Junkin from our financial aid office. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you.
All right, so this is always a popular topic. Everyone wants to know ways that they can help pay for their university education. So I know you've got a great presentation put together with lots of useful information. So let's just jump right in and get started.
Sure. Sounds good. Hello, everybody. Welcome. And yeah, tonight we're going to talk about financial aid. So let's get right into it. All right, we're going to start here with the numbers. So big thing with financial aid is understanding how much it costs first. So let's talk about the costs, and then we're going to talk about all the ways and all the programs that are in place to help you afford those costs. So what we have up right now is just a chart of your estimated costs for next year. And really what we want to think about when we're looking at the costs is how we can bring these costs down. So you want to look for ways to reduce your costs, thinking about how you could save on books and supplies. You could buy books used. You could share books with a classmate, listen to what your professors have to say. Often they put books on reserve at the library, so you could take books out of the library and do your reading there. So looking for opportunities to bring those costs down is really going to help you out a lot for next year. Biggest sort of spot where you have some flexibility for your expenses is with your living costs. So for students living at home, you can see on average for the time that they're at school, their costs are about $3,500 for that 8-month year. Students living away from home, it's a lot more, $12,000. And really those are your daily costs. So you're spending your groceries, your rent, your gas money, all of that. So thinking about how you're spending now and how you can bring those costs down now will help you reduce them for next year and really help you out in the long run. But that's where we wanted to start. So we're planning anywhere between $12,000 to $21,000 next year, depending on really where you're living. But now that we know about the cost, let's talk about how we can afford them, because it is really affordable for students nowadays.
Can I just quickly mention that we're really happy to take all your questions as you think of them. Of course, this is a pretty comprehensive presentation that we're getting right now, so hopefully most of your questions are going to get answered. But please feel free to make use of the chat function or the Q&A box to submit your questions, and we'll be happy to answer those following the presentation.
Okay, thanks. So the screen that you're seeing now is our How Can I Afford That screen. And really what this is it's a checklist of financial aid. So these are all the points you want to hit throughout the year, and every year that you're at school. If you're hitting all of these points, you're going to really maximize the amount of financial aid that's available to you. So we're going to start talking about scholarships first. Scholarship offers go out anywhere between sort of with your offer of admission all the way up until end of June when we get your final grade. So we're constantly sending out scholarship offers. So keep an eye out for those. Students are assessed automatically for scholarships, and we'll send you an email with an offer. Right around this time of year is the OSAP application for next year has gone up, so you can start thinking about applying for OSAP. Once you've done that OSAP application, you can apply for an entrance bursary. So that's in June. Following that entrance bursary, you want to be saving some money, find a summer job, hopefully look for external awards from external organizations. And then when you get here in September and again in January, there's more bursary applications for you to apply to. And we're going to talk about all this in a little bit more detail coming up. Finally, in April, you'll see the Ontario Student Opportunity Grant. That's a grant that's through the OSAP program. It's applied automatically to your account at the end of the year. So you really want to be keeping an eye out for all of these programs throughout the year to maximize that financial aid that's available to you. Okay, let's talk scholarships. So this is just Trent's National Renewable Entrance Scholarship Program. There's no application required for this program, so automatically we're going to assess students. For students coming from directly from high school, we're going to take the average of your top 6 4U or 4M level courses. And if that average is 80% or higher, you're automatically going to be offered a renewable entrance scholarship. So all of these scholarships are renewable for up to 4 years of undergraduate study. And to renew the scholarships, you have to just be maintaining an 80% average in 5 Trent credits every year. We do also offer a full tuition scholarship. So for students coming in with an average of 90% or higher, coming from high school, they are offered a full tuition scholarship. Full tuition is also renewable for students who maintain an average of 90% in their 5 Trent credits every year. If a student who comes in with a full tuition scholarship maintains an average between 80 to 89%, their scholarship will still renew at either $2,500 or $3,000 every year. Okay, let's get into this OSAP. This is sort of the big meat of the presentation tonight. So let's talk a little bit about OSAP. It's the Ontario Student Assistance Program. And as you can see, I've got the website there, ontario.ca/OSAP. And the application for next year is available now. So OSAP is a government student assistance program for Ontario residents. So for students who live in Ontario, this is the program that they're going to apply to. For students who live outside of Ontario, there will be a government assistance program from your home province. And if you live outside of Ontario, that's the program that you would apply to. It will be something similar to OSAP. So the OSAP application is a little bit lengthy. It's taking a lot of information from the students, and that's really to get a really strong understanding of a student's financial needs. So there's a lot of questions so that OSAP can understand your family size, your family income, the assets that you have, how many students live at home in your family, how many will be away at post-secondary school next year. It tries to really get a good understanding of students to give them a really accurate amount of funding. The funding that's provided to students is a combination of federal and provincial loans and grant money. So the grant money of the OSAP is the free money. So the grant portion, students aren't paying that back. And there's a number of different grants available for students. There's commuting and travel grants, low and middle income grants, the Ontario Tuition Grant, which is a 30% off Ontario tuition. A lot of students might have heard about that. There's also the Ontario Student Opportunity Grant, which is a debt forgiveness program that students are automatically applying to when they apply to OSAP. The loan portion of the OSAP does have to be paid back, but while students are enrolled full-time at post-secondary, you don't make any loan payments and your loans don't accumulate any interest. So it's sort of a nice option for students because it gives them the flexibility while they're in school full-time to not having to stress over making payments to their loans. When students graduate or when they stop being a full-time student, their loans go into a 6 month sort of grace period. And during that 6 months, a little bit of interest is going to start to build, but students aren't required to make payments and the full interest won't start building until 6 months after graduation or 6 months after they stop being a full-time student. Gives students a little bit of flexibility to be saving and working towards that first payment. We're going to look a little bit at the OSAP application and talk about a couple of the most frequently asked questions that come up. The screen, sort of the little screen inside the screen that you're seeing right now, is what the main page of the OSAP website looks like. So when you go to that ontario.ca/OSAP, this is what you're going to see. There's a ton of really good information on this page. For students who are just sort of thinking about OSAP, I recommend checking out this how much you could get, or how much could you get option. It's basically an aid estimator and asks students a handful of questions to sort of give them an estimate of how much funding they'd receive next year, and it shows you the breakdown of loan and grant money that you would receive. So it's a good planning tool and a good place to start. There's also information on here about how to pay back your OSAP loans, so that'll have interest rate information and payment options. And there's just a ton of information. So if you're still thinking about OSAP, it's a good website to sort of look around on. When you are ready to apply, you'll click that big blue box in the center and it will get you into your profile. Okay, so we're going to look a little bit more at the profile page. So once you click that big blue button, it's going to ask you to register for an OSAP application or an OSAP profile. When you're registering, you need your social insurance number, so make sure you have that available. And it's also going to get you to set up a password, and it's going to give you an OAN number. You want to write down your password and write down your OAN number and keep them safe. It gets tricky if you get locked out of your OSAP account. So if you get locked out of your OSAP, if you forget your password or forget your OAN number, it will lock you out. You can come to any financial aid office. So even if you are live outside of the Peterborough area, you could go to any college or university and go to their financial aid office to have your OSAP information reset. But if you're writing down your OAN and you write down your password and keep them safe, you hopefully won't get into that situation. All right, we're going to get into starting an application. When you get into the application page, you're presented with 3 options. So the first option is all OSAP for full-time programs. That's what you're going to most likely select if you're a full-time student next year. The second option is the 30% off Ontario tuition grant only. I recommend ignoring this one. If you do the full OSAP application, you're automatically going to be applying to that 30% off Ontario tuition grant as well. So ignore that second option, do the full OSAP application. If you are going to be a part-time student next year, there is also the OSAP for part-time students. That's your third option on the page. If you click any of those question marks, it's going to give you more information. And actually, if you click the full OSAP application, it's going to show you all of the grants that you're applying to. It's just kind of good for information purposes. When you're ready, you'll start a new application. When you start a new application, just make sure you got the right start date. So you have to, if you're starting in September, it's going to be September 2016. If you're starting in January, it would be January 2017. Just make sure you have that date correct so you're filling out the correct application. After this, it's going to ask you to review your profile and review your school information. You'll go through all the terms and conditions of your loan. So take some time, make sure you read that through. And then it'll get you to consent to all those terms and conditions. As you're reviewing your profile, this is an important section to note because this is where you can give parents access to your OSAP information. So some students want to share their OSAP information with their parents, and that's completely fine. Because an OSAP application is in the student's name and it's all the student's information. If a parent calls into the financial aid office to ask us questions about your OSAP account, we won't release any information to them unless you've authorized them on your OSAP application. So you're looking for this release of information to others section, and that's where you would enter your parents' information if you want to give them access to your OSAP account. It's in your profile section, so you can update this at any time. You can add a parent or an older sibling or anybody, or remove them at any time. You're not giving up control of your OSAP account. All the loans, all the information is still in the student's name. It's just giving parents permission to access the information. This section, I just have the status and residency page up here just to give you an idea of what the OSAP application looks like and the resources that are available throughout it. So there are all the blue terms and the blue underlined terms are all sections that you can click for more information. So as you're filling it out, if you're not sure what the question's asking, you could click on the details button. It will give you more information about the question. And if you click on the blue underlined terms, it'll give you OSAP's definition. So for example, if you're not sure if you're in a common law relationship or not, you could click on that common law relationship term. It'll give you OSAP's definition, and it helps you to better accurately answer the questions and give you a more accurate funding amount at the end. Financial information. So we know OSAP is going to be largely based on the students' and parents' financial information. We're looking at the student's income earned before and during the study period. No matter what you put on your OSAP application, OSAP is automatically going to expect students to save $3,000 to contribute to their study period expenses. So that means OSAP is expecting students to be saving that $3,000 either from a summer job, from working during the year, from scholarship money. OSAP's expecting students to bring some money to the table. Big thing to know about this is OSAP does make a number of expectations of students. If you can't meet those expectations, so for example, if you had a landscaping job lined up for the summer and you broke your ankle 2 weeks in and couldn't actually work all summer, you're not likely to make that $3,000 contribution. Talk to us at the financial aid office. There are a number of OSAP appeals available that students can complete and sort of adjust their funding and adjust the expectations that OSAP has set for students. So if you filled out your OSAP application and you don't think you're getting enough funding, you can always come and talk to us at the financial aid office and we can review your OSAP application with you and look for options where appeals might be a good option for you. Something else to note, because you're filling out your OSAP application now, you might not think that you're getting a job during the year next year. If something happens and all of a sudden halfway through the school year you decide to get a part-time job, your income is going to change. Make sure you let us know that at the financial aid office. Your income has to be reported correctly to OSAP in order for you to get the maximum amount of grant money that's available. So just make sure you keep us up to date on your income. And same thing, if you thought you were going to be working all year but you lost your job halfway through the year, let us know that too so we can make the adjustments on your account. Parents' income, that's a big thing. For students who have graduated high school, for up to 4 years after you graduate high school, you are considered a dependent, and OSAP will look at your parents' information for those 4 years after you've graduated high school. Make sure parents have filed their tax returns for the previous year. If parents' tax returns haven't been filed, students won't get the most grant money that's available to them as well. So make sure parents are filing their taxes. If parents are separated or divorced, this is a big question that comes up. If parents are separated or divorced, you're providing the information for the custodial parent only. So that's the parent that the student is living with majority of the time. If a student lives with parents 50-50, then you can choose which custodial parent you're going to put the information down for. But you're only putting custodial parents' information. You're not putting the other parents. If the custodial parent is remarried, you're providing step parents' information on the OSAP application as well. This is another spot where we see a lot of appeals. Some step parents have their own children that they're supporting and can't necessarily support stepchildren. If that's the case, there is a step parent appeal form. Come talk to us at the financial aid office again, and we can go through those appeal options with you. Okay, your registered education savings plan. This is another big one that we get a lot of questions about. We really encourage students, if you do have an RESP or a registered education savings plan, we encourage you to break that up over the 4 years that you're at school. So if you're in a 4-year or 3-year program, you're going to spread that RESP out over the full time. So if you're in a 4-year program, you're going to only take out a quarter of the RESP every year, and you're only going to report that quarter to OSAP. So we get a lot of students who will take out the full RESP in first year, and it kind of wipes out their OSAP for first year. So just make sure you're spreading that out and breaking that up over the full time that you're at school. Last steps. So before you submit your OSAP application, you just want to make sure that you are going through the application. There's a navigation page, pane that you can kind of click through all the pages of your application and make sure that all the information is correct. Once you submit your application, it moves out of that government portal and comes over to our office, and all the changes after that point have to be done with us at the financial aid office, which is fine, but it's nice if you have submitted it properly to start. So just make sure all your numbers are correct and your incomes are all correct so you get the right estimate. When you click submit, you're going to be prompted to print and complete your OSAP signature and all of your consent pages. Once you've signed all your consent pages, you can either scan them and send them electronically back to us, so you can send them in the mail. All of those come to the financial aid office. The only thing that you really want to be sort of aware of is this Master Student Financial Assistance Agreement. This is a one-time thing. You do this once in your first time that you apply to OSAP. It's your loan document. So what's going to happen with that Master Student Financial Assistance Agreement, it's the only thing that goes in another direction. So that the student has to take in person to the post office with their SIM card and their government photo ID. Post office is going to verify their identification and send that loan paper off to the loan servicing center on the student's behalf. So just be really aware of that. That one is going in another direction. We get a lot of students, OSAP doesn't get released because that Master Student Financial Assistance Agreement hasn't made it to the loan servicing center. So keep an eye out for that one. After you have submitted your OSAP, we'll start processing in our office, but OSAP doesn't get released to the students until 10 days before classes start. So you'll get your estimate online and you'll see some changes on your OSAP account when you log in to the OSAP website, but your funding won't be released until 10 days before classes start. So just keep an eye out for that. All right, after you've completed your OSAP, as I mentioned at the beginning, once your OSAP has been submitted, then you can apply for bursaries. So bursaries are awarded to students from the school, and we award them to students based on financial need. So for that reason, students do have to have applied for OSAP and be in receipt of OSAP so we can determine that they have a financial need. What we do once the OSAP has been submitted, we can see the OSAP application in our office, and we can use the numbers that OSAP have calculated to know if a student has a financial need. If there is a financial need, we will fill that with a bursary. So to be eligible for bursaries, students do have to complete a bursary application form, and they are posted on the My Trent student portal. So the entrance bursary application is posted now, and we offer a number of entrance bursaries. We have general entrance bursaries, athletic entrance bursaries. We have a City of Peterborough award for any Peterborough residents. All of those are due by June 30th, so just make sure you get those in. And then when you get to school in September, every January, there will be in-course bursary applications for students to apply to. And they're, again, posted on the My Trent student portal. It's an online application. Students just simply complete and submit. It comes over to our office. It's one application for all of the bursaries that we have available. And those are due September 30th and January 30th every year. How to prepare. So that's a quick summary of sort of all of the financial aid resources that are going to be available to you next year and every year that you're at school. With that information, now you can really start planning. That aid estimator that I showed you up on the OSAP website, that not only will give you your estimated OSAP amounts for next year, it'll also give you your estimated costs for next year based on your program. So it's a really good tool to start your planning with. Keep in mind, OSAP isn't designed to cover all of your expenses. So OSAP does have that expectation of students that they are bringing some money to the table. So start thinking about a summer job, start looking for external awards and resources. When you come to Trent, we will automatically assess you for a scholarship. If you apply to bursaries, we will give you a bursary, but there are limits on how much we can give out to students. There is no limit on how much external awards and resources that you can find. So using websites like yconic.com and Scholarships Canada, those are really good websites to search engines for external awards and scholarships. Start thinking about now how you're spending your money and thinking about how it's coming into your bank account and going out of your bank account. It's really being aware of how you're spending is going to help you look for ways to reduce your expenses. And biggest thing when you're here, when you get to Trent, come visit us at the financial aid office. We're in Blackburn Hall, and we are always happy to see students and help you out. We can take the time to sit with you and review your OSAP application if you think you're not getting enough funding. We can talk to you about the different options and the different sort of resources that might be available to you that you're not already accessing. So take the time to feel free to come in and check us out. And that's it for me. Let's talk about some questions.
All right. Well, thanks so much for the presentation, Lisa. We've had a ton of questions roll in, and some of which overlap a little bit, but most of them are kind of unique questions. So let's kind of go back to the beginning. And I just want to get back and actually take a look. So the first one I had came from, I think it's Gemma. Where did that go? Here we go. If I get denied OSAP, and are there any other options? For example, payment plans.
Usually what I tell students, if they're not eligible for OSAP, a great second option is a student line of credit from one of the major banks. Student line of credits have low interest rates and are and better payment options than credit cards or other sort of loans. So a student line of credit would be a good second option. As far as payment plans, students can sometimes work with the finance office with payment plans, but really I would encourage you to look into that student line of credit option second. I'm not sure all of the details around Trent's payment plans, really. It's a little bit out of my expertise.
So the second question we had, let me find that, is from Brianna. Okay, is there help to get the deposit paid on time? So I think they're referring to the tuition deposit, which is due June 15th.
It's another sort of out of my expertise. As far as I know, there isn't, your OSAP will come in after. So as I talked about, OSAP is expecting students to be bringing some money to the table, and included in that would be the tuition deposits. They are mandatory, and students, it sort of holds your spot for when you get here. So there's not a lot of options, I guess, on our end for flexibility with the tuition deposits.
Next question comes from True, and that is, how do we know what to put in for the disability claims for OSAP?
That would be, I guess you could sort of refer to what you are claiming on taxes, but as for disability claims like disability funding, if that's what you're referring to, it would be what you would claim on your taxes, and I would again look for those sort of underlying terms and more information terms on the OSAP application. It should give you a little bit more direction as to really what they're looking for in those sections.
All right, next up we have a question from Maria, which is, can you apply for bursaries and scholarships if you're not on OSAP?
Scholarships, definitely. Scholarships, don't really require an application. We will assess you automatically, and they are based on your grades. So OSAP isn't a requirement for scholarships. For bursaries, they are based on financial needs, so we require students to be accessing some form of government financial aid. So whether that's OSAP, an out-of-province comparable program, First Nations band funding, one of those students are required to be receiving one of those funding options before they can apply for bursaries. It's so that we can determine that students do have a financial need. It gives us something to work on our numbers on.
Okay, here's a kind of multi-part question. This is from Kim, and she says, I applied for OSAP for nursing and I'm moving away from home, but the form didn't ask for rent cost.
No, OSAP does have, as I talked about, OSAP does have certain expectations. So OSAP does have specific allotments for an average of what it expects students to be paying for rent. So it doesn't take into your specific personal rent costs. It has an average cost of how much it expects students to be paying for rent, to be paying for groceries, and the like. So it's built into OSAP's automatic calculation.
Okay, next up is Aaliyah, and she's asking, when are payments due? How much is each payment?
That will all be available on the student accounts website. I'm not sure that tuition payment has been set for next year. Tuition payment, it will be due your first installment September 1st, but keep an eye out on the student accounts website, and they should be sending out notices to students once they start processing bills and get into that step. Average tuition about $6,200, so you can plan for that, and there's usually 2 installments, so you can pay one in September, one in January.
Yeah, so you can definitely ballpark it based on last year's average of $6,200. Some programs a little more, and also expect a slight increase versus last year's amount. Next up is Mohammed, and he's asking, if you don't want to apply for an OSAP loan, only for a scholarship or grant, how do you apply for that? Do you still need to fill out the OSAP application?
That's a very, very great question. Something new with the OSAP application, they have created an option for students to just take the grant-only portion of your OSAP. So when you're filling out your OSAP application, there will either be a section on the application that will ask you if you just want grant-only funding, or it'll be a form that you can fill out in our office. So it's allows students to just take the grant money, so the free portion of the OSAP, and leave the loan alone. If you get halfway through the year and realize that you need a little bit more money, you can take out that loan portion at a later date. You do still have to do the full OSAP application, sorry, to answer the rest of the question. You would still do the full OSAP application, and then, like I said, just select the grant-only portion.
Okay, next up we have Shannon. When are all the due dates? Where can I find them and keep track of everything? So we can probably answer that from the financial perspective.
Yeah, well, that'll be again on the student accounts website. I believe right on the trentu.ca/student accounts, and they will have, I'm trying to picture the website in my head, but I'm pretty sure one of the first links is a link to tuition costs, and that'll give you, should give you a breakdown of the due dates in there. From the financial aid perspective, due dates for entrance bursaries, your due date is June 30th. OSAP, I recommend you completing that sort of sooner rather than later. The OSAP deadline is a little bit later, but we really recommend students have completed their OSAP by the end of June as well, to give us some processing time and make sure that your OSAP's available when you get here in September. For your scholarships, there's no due date there. We're awarding those automatically. And then when you get here in September, the in-course bursary application due date is September 30th.
Lots of good info there. So the next question is from Brianna, and she's asking, what if your average went up to 90 by the end of this semester? Does that still count?
Definitely. So we are going to look at your final averages. When we get your final grades in, we'll do a final average assessment for your scholarships. If your averages have gone up with your final grades, we will send you a revised scholarship offer if you've already received one. If you haven't received an offer yet, we'll send you out one once we get your final grades in. And definitely, if your grades have increased, your scholarship offer will increase. We also get a lot of students who will go back in the summer and upgrade a course. If you do that, definitely just send us that new grade report or your updated transcript, and we'll be able to give you a new scholarship calculation.
Okay, so next question comes from Kelsey. She's wondering if there's an estimated cost for books that she can use on OSAP.
OSAP will estimate your book costs. I believe it's $1,500 for the year, but that is OSAP will automatically, that's built into their calculation, the book costs.
Okay, so you don't really need to worry about figuring that out yourself.
No.
Okay. Next up is from Kim. How do scholarships work for students who just graduated from Trent? I had an 80 average in my Trent undergrad and took 4 courses this semester and 1 in the summer. I'm assuming wondering about something retroactive. I'm not
you
quite.
Just graduated from Trent versus 1 in the summer. If you, so I guess I'll talk about sort of the in-course scholarships and how they work. At the end of every year, we'll automatically assess students for their scholarship renewal or for an in-course scholarship. So we would be looking at your 5 credits over the year, 5 full credits. So if you took 4 credits during the year and 1 in the summer and your average was 80, you potentially would be eligible for a scholarship in the next upcoming year. If you've graduated though, and you're not coming back to Trent, then there wouldn't be a scholarship for next year. If you've graduated and are moving into a graduate studies program, the grad office does offer some grants and scholarships for students who are in their grad or a master's program.
Okay, next up we have a question from Laura. How to apply for OSAP if they're 4 years out of high school?
Yeah, that's fine. You can definitely still apply. The OSAP application is fairly intuitive, so it will, as you answer questions, it will give you different options to answer the next questions with. So it'll ask you, when it's asking you about your status, it'll ask you how many years you are out of high school, and automatically in there it will take your application, look at you as an independent student for the rest of the application. So it'll automatically know, you don't have to tell it. It's the same OSAP application.
Yeah, I came to university as a mature student myself, and there was no problem applying for OSAP. I was still eligible. Next up, we have a question from Connor, wondering if there's a way to specify on the application that their parents are not contributing to tuition.
That's a tough question. We do see it a lot. Parents are expected to be contributing to a student's education for those 4 years after when the student is still considered a dependent. If something's happened and there's some kind of family breakdown situation, there are OSAP appeals available, but those are pretty extensive situations. Otherwise, parents are expected to be helping students.
Another one from Courtney here. If your average increases while in university, will the scholarship also increase?
Typically not. The entrance scholarship that you get in your first year, that carries with you, and it sort of works in students' favor if their grades drop, because their scholarship won't drop if their grades do, but it works sort of in opposition for students who increase their grades. So your scholarship, theoretically, the average, or your amount, sorry, does stay the same. We do have scholarship appeals. If things happen and you feel that you want to appeal that, you can always fill out a scholarship appeal form and explain your situation to the scholarship appeal committee. They can review your case, and I have seen students who have increased their scholarship in certain situations.
Okay, another question from Jordan. If you don't receive an entrance scholarship in the first year, are you still able to get scholarships in other years?
Yes. So if you don't come in with an entrance scholarship in your first year, you would be eligible for in-course scholarships when you're at Trent. So to be eligible for an in-course scholarship, students have to be maintaining if students maintain an 85 to 89% average while they're at Trent, they would receive a $1,000 in-course scholarship the following year. If their Trent average is 90% or above, the in-course scholarship is $2,000 for the following year.
Okay, so next up, Jacqueline. I heard that even if you get a full tuition scholarship, you still have to pay a deposit for tuition. Is this true?
Yes. So like I had kind of mentioned earlier, that deposit is just securing your place. You do have to pay the deposit even if you're getting a full tuition scholarship. In addition to that, full tuition scholarship is going to cover your tuition portion of your costs. in addition to tuition, students are responsible for paying ancillary fees and residence fees. There's other costs on your account, so that deposit might not go directly to your tuition. It would go to your ancillary fee costs instead.
Next question comes from Brittany. How do you get more grants from OSAP?
I think if you filled out the OSAP application and you feel that you're not getting enough grant money, you could come and talk to us at the financial aid office, and we could have a review of your OSAP application and talk about maybe any appeals that could be available to you. The biggest grant portion potentially for some students is that Ontario Student Opportunity Grant, and that's the grant that students will see at the end of the year. So to make sure that you're eligible and make sure that you receive that grant, students have to pass their courses and they have to have reported their income correctly to OSAP throughout the year, and they also have to file their taxes at the end of the year. So if you're doing those 3 things at the end of the year, that Ontario Student Opportunity Grant is going to be applied to your account. It's a debt forgiveness program. It wipes out, it sort of caps your loan at $7,500. So any loan money above that turns into grant money. There's potentially a lot of grant money available through that program. So just make sure you're reporting your income correctly, you're filing your taxes, basically keeping the financial aid office up to date if there's any changes, and always come in and feel free to come in and review your OSAP account with us to look for other opportunities.
Okay. Next question. I'm 21 with no working experience. Does my OSAP application depend on my income or my parents' income?
If you're 21 and have been out of high school for more than 4 years, it's going to look at your income. So if you are 21 and an independent, so 4 years out of high school, it's going to look at your income. If you are 21 and still in that 4-year window, it'll look at your parents' income. It's just dependent on how many years you've been out of high school.
Okay, I'm trying to find one that I've written down and I don't have the exact wording on, so I'm going to come back to it. Next up is Caitlin. How do we give exact numbers, like it asks if we don't know until when school starts? So probably referring to not having the current tuition amount currently listed.
Okay, so I'm just going to read that one time. If you're referring to giving exact numbers on your OSAP application, I would say give the best estimates that you can. If something changes, if you've estimated something and it changes drastically, like say you estimate how much money you're going to earn throughout the school year, if that changes drastically, come in and talk to us. You can always make changes at the financial aid office on your OSAP application. Just do your best when you're filling out the application and fill it out to the best of your knowledge. But if something changes, you can always come in and change it with us.
Okay, next up, Caitlin has another question. Sorry, that's the one. I duplicated that. Jacqueline, coming back to you, when are the entrance bursary applications available?
They're available now. So if you log into My Trent, your My Trent student portal, under the finances page, you should see the entrance bursary application there, and that'll be up until June 30th.
Another question, probably similar to the questions about OSAP versus the grant form of the application. What if you only want to apply for the grant? I assume it's still possible to just do that.
Yep, same thing. Just make sure you fill out that full OSAP application, and there should be a section of the application that will allow you to just take the grant money only. If it's not built into the application, it's a very new program. If it's not built into the application this year, it'll be a form that you can fill out in our office.
Okay, next question from Keel. How do we apply for in-course bursaries?
In-course bursaries will be an application through the My Trent student portal again. So in September, that application will be posted, usually in the first week of classes, and it's due September 30th. So it's an online application, one application for all of the bursaries that we have available.
All right. This question comes from Madison. What is the deadline for OSAP?
Deadline for OSAP technically is about 60 days before the end of your program. So it is a later deadline, but we really encourage students, if you want your funding to be available for you when you get to school in September, you want to make sure that that application is done really by the end of June.
Okay, next up, question from Madison. Oh, that's the one I just asked. Vicky, does OSAP cover the cost of residence?
That's a really good question. OSAP, like I had said, OSAP does have sort of a calculation of how much students are paying for rent and food built into their estimate. So when they are calculating their funding, they have their numbers already in place. Sometimes, often residence costs are higher than what OSAP estimates students to be spending on rent and food. So residence is accounted for in the OSAP calculation. However, residence costs are usually more expensive than what OSAP thinks you're paying. So students in residence often have to bring a little bit more money to the table to be contributing.
Okay. Looking for a reference again for those external scholarships. What were those websites again?
www.yconic.ca. It's YCONIC.ca is a good one. And then the other one is scholarshipscanada.com. And those are two really good search engines to be looking around. Also talking to any local businesses, public libraries, maybe parents, companies, and organizations, sort of any local businesses and stuff often have money set aside for students who are going away to school. So just sort of shopping around in your area as well and talking to people in your area. There might have connections to external awards and scholarships for you too. Service
clubs as well. If you do volunteer work locally, a lot of service clubs do like to support students who are going away to university. So I think that's another good thing to look into.
Yeah.
Next up, question from Kim, and this is one that I kind of misplaced earlier. I found it here. Can you appeal an estimate, or must you wait until you get the full amount in September?
Yeah, you can fill out the appeal forms before September comes, and especially if you know that you do qualify for an appeal. All of the appeal forms are on our financial aid website, so trentu.ca/financial aid. Right on the main page, there's a link to our forms page, and you can look at all the OSAP appeal forms that are available. You can definitely fill them out before you get here in September. We once we have access to the applications, we'll be able to review them and start working on the appeals.
Okay, a question from a couple people, similar questions, so I'll try and cover them both at the same time. These came from both Brianna and Keel. When OSAP asked for my program, teacher education stream does not appear as an option. So both of those were asked from a couple different people.
I'm just trying to picture all of the codes in my head, and I would. Teacher education stream is not an option. No, select the undergraduate program that you're going into. I know the teacher education stream is built on top of that. Select your undergrad, so what you're going to come out with as an undergrad. So if you're going in for a I don't know, Bachelor of Arts in History, look for that. And I know you're doing the teacher education after that. That'll be in your 5th year. So for now, just do it based on your undergraduate program.
So another shared question between two of our participants tonight, both Connor and Robert, are asking, is parents' debt taken into consideration for the OSAP funding?
It will. I'm not sure if debt specifically is taken into consideration. You'll have to go through that finances section for the parents and just be reading through the questions and making sure that you're answering them sort of as early as you can. I believe a little bit, but things like credit card debt, I'm not sure if that is all taken in. I'm sorry, I'm not 100% sure on that one. You'll have to just go through that finances section. It will ask you specifically all of the different sort of pieces of the finances that there are taken into consideration.
Okay, next up, this question's from Nick. Actually, sorry, I missed Taylor. Do you get an entrance scholarship for your marks after this year, including summer school?
Yes. So for entrance scholarships, we're looking at the average of your top 6 4U or 4M level credits. if you do go back to summer school and upgrade one of those courses or take another course, definitely we'll include that in your scholarship assessment. Just make sure after you've completed that course, you're sending us your updated transcripts so that we can do your reassessment.
There's also an intention to upgrade form available on your Trent portal under the academics tab. And that's a good thing to send to admissions in the summer, just so that we know to keep an eye out on some additional marks coming in for you if you're doing summer school. Next, I have a question from Nicholas. If my parents and myself move to Ontario from another province in June, are we Ontario residents for OSAP?
Yes. So because you're a dependent of your parents, if your parents have moved to Ontario, that's now your home province. You'd be considered for OSAP as an Ontario resident.
Another one from Keel. Do I notify them of my personal income annually, or do I need to notify them every time I get a paycheck?
It's annually. So the OSAP application, you'll fill that out every year. And when you fill out the application, you'll put what you estimate your income to be for the year. So you don't have to update it every time you get a paycheck. It would be your estimate of what you're going to receive that year. If that estimate is different from what you actually receive, halfway through the year, so in December, OSAP's going to contact everybody and say, please update your income on OSAP. You'll log into your OSAP application and let OSAP know if there has been any changes on your income or if it's remained the same. So you do have opportunities throughout the year to be updating your income. Also, if it changes drastically throughout the year, you can update it with the financial aid office. But really, if you do your estimate at the beginning of the year and your estimate is accurate for what you've earned throughout the year, then you don't need to make any changes.
A question that we've already answered once. I think this person came in and missed it. Just wondering if there is assistance with the deposit portion.
The deposit, currently there's not any assistance for that deposit. OSAP is expecting students to be bringing some money with them and saving some money for school. So that money that you're saving, the student's responsibility could go towards the deposit. OSAP will assist students with their installments, so their fall and winter tuition payments.
Next up, another question from Jacqueline. I'm kind of jumping between the chat box as well as the questions and answers. Some of these are kind of getting answered as we go. You're helping each other out, so I want to say thanks for those of you that are kind of replying to people's questions. Jacqueline is asking, can you apply to OSAP all throughout the year, or is it only before school starts? And I believe there's a deadline.
There's a deadline. OSAP deadline to apply, I believe, is 60 days before the end of classes. So you can apply if you get into January and you didn't apply for OSAP up to that point, but in January you realize you do need some assistance, you could apply in January for the year. So there is a later deadline for OSAP, but we do encourage students to apply early to make sure that your funding's there and ready for you when you need it.
Next up, this is one of the ones that you've helped each other out with. Thank you, Jacqueline, for answering Aaliyah's question, but we'll read it out there for everyone else too. How much is the tuition deposit?
Tuition deposit is $600 and to June 30th? 16th, yes, sorry, too many deadlines. 15th, it is the 15th. June 15th, tuition deposit is due at $600.
Jumping over to the Q&A box, Caitlin's wondering what is included in ancillary fees.
Ancillary fees, there's a number of different things included in the ancillary fees. That includes your things like your groups and levy fees, your bus pass, your enrolled in Trent's health benefit program. That is something there are some ancillary fees that students are eligible to opt out of as well, so that's a way that you can save some money. For example, some students are up to the age of 25, they're enrolled under parents benefit plans. So if you are enrolled under your parents health benefit plans, you don't necessarily need Trent as well. You could opt out of that. Full information is available on the student accounts website. They have a full listing of all of the ancillary fees that and the breakdown of them. So trentu.ca/student accounts, and they'll have more information on those and how to opt out.
Another question, this one is from Anna. If you save more than $3,000, is that a disadvantage, i.e. will we get less OSAP?
It's hard to say really, because OSAP has such a big calculation. It's not just looking at that $3,000. So it's really hard to say. I would say go on to that aid estimator on the OSAP website. So on the OSAP main page, that box that says how much will I get? Go to that aid estimator. It takes maybe 5 minutes to fill out the aid estimator, and you can put in a sort of couple different scenarios and see how your funding changes depending on the different scenarios. So the thing with students who do make a lot of money in the summer, sort of the pro to that is that it's more money that you're not paying back at the end of the year. So even though if you make a lot in the summer, maybe you're getting less OSAP at the end of the day, you're also getting less loan money, and you're in a better position when you graduate. So there is, you know, depending on how much you make, it does sort of shift your OSAP calculations potentially, but it's really, making more money is not a downfall in the long run.
So jumping back over to the chat one, Jacqueline, okay, we got that. Next one, my parents just landed to become Canadian permanent residents. They were residents of another country in 2015. They haven't filed any tax claim for 2015 as they weren't Canadian residents. In this case, how does the OSAP office evaluate my application? Do my parents need to claim tax to CRA now?
That is a very specific question. I would say I would come in and talk to us at the financial aid office. Really, it's just a fairly detailed question, and there's sort of certain scenarios that maybe you could fill out OSAP, maybe we need some more things in place. So I would say please, if you could send us an email to financialaid@trentu.ca. It's up on the screen right now, or our website, and we can get in touch with you and give you more specific information on that one. It's just a bit hard to give you a general answer on that. Sorry.
Another question, how do I apply if I'm a transfer student? I'm coming to Trent and being given 10 transfer credits. I assume still able to apply for OSAP?
Definitely, yeah. If you applied for OSAP at your previous school, it would be the same thing. You're going to the OSAP website, filling out the application, and now just selecting Trent as your school. So same thing, you're definitely eligible to apply for OSAP as a transfer student.
All right, another good question here. How do we pay for the fees that are due? Credit card? Are there other options?
Like payment options?
Payment methods.
Oh yeah, definitely. There are a number of ways to pay. You can set it up, set Trent up as an online bill. I believe you just, Trent University, and your student number is your account number. You can pay with credit cards. You can come into the office and pay here. There's a number of payment options available.
Next question, is tuition deposit refundable in case students decide to switch universities before September?
I believe it is, but I think there's a window of when it's another one that's sort of through the student accounts office. All the information on the tuition, all the information on tuition payments and dates and deadlines and tuition, and those will be all on the student accounts website. So trentu.ca/student accounts, and that'll be, yeah, tuition deposit information will be on there as well.
Okay.
I just think there's a refund window, but I'm not sure exactly of the dates on that one.
You can always connect with us during business hours by phone or email if you'd like, and we can definitely help you navigate the payment schedules and refund schedules and things like that. Next question, does RESP money decrease OSAP?
Again, it's one of those things, it's potential. It's like OSAP is looking at such a number of different things with the student situations. So potentially, if the RESP money is very large, that's why we advise students to be spreading that RESP out over the 4 years that you're at school, to break it up, and hopefully it won't wipe out your OSAP, but it really depends on how much RESP money we're talking about.
Okay. On the medical insurance, Mohammed's asking, does your medical insurance, is it included or provided, or is it just Ontario Health coverage as a default? So your student health coverage is kind of like a workplace health coverage. It's on top of your basic provincially provided health insurance. So this gives you some partial coverage for things like dental, vision, ambulance, those types of things. Of course, prescriptions. So the types of things that most people wouldn't be covered for and are typically part of a benefits package. And that's one of the things that you're paying for with those additional ancillary fees. Another question, Caitlin, if we made a mistake on the application, but it's already submitted, can we email the financial office to get it fixed, or do I physically have to go to an office?
You can start with an email, financialaid@trentu.ca, and let us know what happened, and then we can kind of guide you appropriately. So likely it'll be an OSAP change form we'll do, and that's all that's usually needed to correct it. But if it's a bigger situation or a financial error or anything like that, sometimes we need a little bit more documentation. So start with sending us an email, and we can definitely guide you in the right direction that way to make any corrections.
Okay, next up, I have two questions from Brianna, so I'd like to maybe cover both those at the same time. Is annual income for parents before or after deductions? And also, how does she find out her exact tuition cost?
Parents' income, it's before, it's gross income. So you want to be putting that number. I believe on the OSAP application, if you detail into the questions, it'll give you exactly what line on the income tax form that it's looking for. And exact tuition costs, I don't believe has been released yet. It'll be approximately, last year was about $66,200. So it will be a little bit more than that. You can expect that. Again, the student accounts website will have more information on specific tuition costs. So trentu.ca/student accounts.
So we've got a number of people asking the exact kind of same question. The exact amount, when's that going to come? That's in the works. You can expect it soon. And that's $6,220. That was last year's average. For everybody asking that question, just anticipate a slightly higher amount, but you will receive communication about the exact amount due for your specific program. Next question is from Kim. Are there nursing specific scholarships / bursaries? Is it possible to apply for or set up a financial aid meeting on the 11th for the nursing orientation day?
Yes, there are some specific scholarships and bursaries that are for students in the nursing program. To apply for them, you could talk to the nursing program directly. They do offer some bursaries, scholarships, awards through the nursing department. Other ones that are applied through our department, you would just apply to that bursary application. In the bursary application, you can tell us about yourself. We'll see that you're a nursing student. We try to match you up to bursaries that match you as a student and what program you're in. So there are, you just fill out that general bursary application to be access those nursing specific awards. To financial aid, somebody from the financial aid office will likely be around during that nursing orientation day. And if not, our office is open. You're welcome to just walk in. You don't necessarily have to make an appointment. But if you do want to set up a time, you can email us at financialaid@trentu.ca and we can set something up.
Okay, next up, we've kind of covered this with the question about nursing specific. So we've answered that question for a couple people here. Next one is, I've been a permanent resident of Canada for 7 months. What is the likelihood of getting assistance from OSAP?
Permanent resident. I'm trying to remember the exact amount of time that students have to be here before. I would go onto the OSAP website on the main page, ontario.ca/OSAP. It's going to have all the information, and it will have residence definitions and OSAP's definitions and requirements. So you could check on that OSAP website. They should have more specific information about the exact time frame of how long you have to be here before you're eligible.
Okay, we have one last question here. As a transfer student, do I need to pay off previous school OSAP?
It's a great question. And that one kind of depends on, really no. If you're coming directly from another school, when you apply to Trent and you, when you apply to OSAP as a Trent student, it's going to put your loan and everything else back into that no payment and no interest period. So you don't need to pay off your previous school's OSAP. It's just going to sort of add on. If you are very, very past transfer student and you've been a few years out, you have to be making your payments and be in good standing with OSAP. If you've been moved into sort of a repayment period, and you have to be in good standing with OSAP to apply again, but you don't have to have paid it all off.
Okay, well, that covers all the questions that have come into us. I think this is a good spot to conclude things. Our contact information for the financial aid office is listed there, 705-748-1524, and also email financialaid@trentu.ca. I want to take a moment to thank all of you for being a part of this evening's webinar. I want to thank Lisa for providing this great presentation and answering all these questions. I want to invite anybody out there who hasn't been up for a visit to come on a campus tour. You can book a campus tour with us anytime, pretty much Monday through Saturday. www.trentu.ca/tours. For anybody that has not yet accepted your offer of admission, please do so. We'd love to see you here in the fall. And yeah, we'll wrap it up there. We wish you all the best, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, everybody.